Welcome to The Secret Truth. I'm George Butler, and we're going to be discussing during this presentation some parallels that I've noticed between the John Fitzgerald Kennedy administration and the President Trump administration. It's very, very eerie to start comparing the two presidents and their administrations. John Fitzgerald Kennedy went into office in 1961 and was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. Donald John Trump went into office on January 20th, 2017, and is presently our president, ongoing. Now, they were both presidents of the United States. They were affiliated with different parties, okay? John Fitzgerald Kennedy was affiliated, a member of the Democratic Party, and Donald John Trump is a member of the Republican Party. They were both independent in their thinking, in their political thinking, and also they're sort of off on their own sometimes. They're independent and sort of, very, very original thinking about how to approach things. They both have insiders. John Fitzgerald Kennedy had all the Council on Foreign Relations and all those insiders on his staff. And surprisingly enough, Donald John Trump, President Trump, also has some insiders on the staff, but they were not well intentioned by Bannon and other insiders that were on the far right side to be there. Kennedy, during his campaign slogan was "Getting America Moving Again." Now, doesn't that sound familiar with Trump's campaign slogan was "Make America Great Again"? Both were committed to reinvigorating America's economics and financial situations. Both proposed, Kennedy proposed a tax cut that was bottled up in Congress. And it's eerie, but similar to the proposal of the tax cut that President Trump wants to initiate, but it's not going anywhere in Congress yet either. Both were opposed to the deep state, and especially the CIA. They were both also very accommodative to Russia. John Fitzgerald Kennedy was very accommodative to the Soviet Union at the time. And today it appears that President Trump is also accommodative to Russia and Putin, President Putin. Both, you could say, generated opposition to the Bilderberg Group policies. And that's one of the most powerful groups in the world that meets annually. And also, we're talking about the deep state. Both presidents, both Kennedy and Trump, have come into conflict with and opposition to what we deem to be the deep state. The deep state is made up of your intelligence agencies and your big money and your big banking interests and so forth. The deep state wants to maintain, during Kennedy's administration, a tension with Russia. It was promulgated by the Dulles brothers, Allen Dulles and John Foster Dulles. John Foster Dulles was the Secretary of State before Kennedy, and his brother Allen Dulles was the director of the CIA at the beginning of the Kennedy administration. Trump today came in and he was on the campaign trail, and he's friendly to Russia and to Putin. Some of these insiders now with the National Security Council are turning him against Russia, it would appear, with these new sanctions. Kennedy fired Allen Dulles because of the Bay of Pigs catastrophe. And also, just recently, in the last several months, Trump has fired the FBI director. These are similarities that you can't ignore. The biggest opposition that Kennedy had after the Bay of Pigs was the CIA, and he swore that he would close it down. And this created a lot of enemies in part of the deep state, which the CIA is a big part of. Trump came in on the first day and took out TPP and later Paris Climate Agreement. Boy, this rattled the cage of your insiders and your elitists. They were dead against him from that day forward. It was interesting that Robert Kennedy, along with President Kennedy, sat on a committee. Actually, President Kennedy, as a senator, sat on a committee that investigated organized crime. So both Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy became aware of the organized crime problem in America. Now, Trump's side of that is that being in New York, he's had to deal, with the mob up there, see. And so he was around there. They control a lot of things. Joseph Kennedy's, John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy's father dealt with the mob and also partnership with Lucky Luciano in the early 30s and 40s. On the other side of the coin, Trump was forced to deal with the mob on supplying him concrete for his building structures. The business ties on the Kennedy side was through his family. The business ties on Trump's side would be national and especially international ties, business ties. Both were wealthy. Kennedy was a millionaire and Trump is a billionaire in this new day and time. They both came from wealthy families, and also the Kennedy family was well ensconced in the Eastern establishment by the time that Kennedy took office. The family wealth that the Trumps had was not nearly on the scope and size of the Kennedy family when he took office, but he actually was more self-made than Kennedy. Kennedy had inherited money, where Trump had made it, had inherited some money, been backing from his father, and ran it up to several $100 million, lost it, and then came back with his billions today. Kennedy, these are little differences here, was more humble, and on the other side of the coin, Trump has this ego. It's a problem, and it can override his good judgment sometimes. He's got to always hit people back. This is not the way to do things. Kennedy was well educated, went to the London School of Economics and Political Science. Trump came some fundamental education, more business, Wharton School of Business, more than anything else. So he was business oriented in his education, while Kennedy had a much broader international, philosophical, political view. There were tests of both candidates. The test of the Bay of Pigs, Kennedy failed in that with the CIA. The Syrian test for Trump, he failed that in going in and bombing that airfield without really good intelligence. Kennedy did succeed on the Cuban Missile Crisis and did bring that to a successful conclusion. We're waiting now on Trump's real big test with North Korea. We think the Chinese, they made an announcement today. This is the 6th of August, 2017, to persuade North Korea to stop testing and to build down their testing program. Okay? Both Kennedy, President Kennedy and President Trump, were unaware of the power and extent of the deep state during their period. Kennedy had no idea, in my opinion, and I've studied this quite a bit since the Kennedy assassination, of who he was up against. And I believe that on the other side of the ledger, Trump had an idea more of what he was up against, but I don't think he fully appreciated the power that they could wield against him, especially the media power and the money power. He was sort of free of the money power so far, but the media power that they have, they've been raking him over the coals. And I don't think he appreciated the scope of their power and extent and control. There's a traditional thing called killing of the king ritual, see? And we think that Kennedy experienced that whenever there's a king, whether it's a tribal type king, and that king disappoints the tribe or has not secured good favors with with the gods of the day, like there could be droughts or battles or wars that they lost. Then there's what the people have a ritual called the killing of the king. There have been ominous rumors here about threats against President Trump, and I just hope they never come to fruition or reality. I think that we have to continue to support President Trump and try to overcome this deep state attack which is continuing. In concluding, President Kennedy was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963, and now we're awaiting the unfolding of the President Trump's administration, and I just hope and pray for his safety and his goodwill, and above all, President Trump, let's try to overcome that hubris, ego thing that does not serve you well. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for viewing this presentation, and those are just some of the ideas that I put together for this video that are the parallels, and I call them dangerous parallels, because we know what happened to Kennedy, and then we just pray and hope that that does not happen to our president, President Trump. But that liberal progressive left have been so brainwashed and so propagandized into hate for Trump, and he does not deserve that. I think deep down he loves his country, and I think he's going to do in the end what's good for this country. I want to thank you for viewing this, and thank you very much for all your time and consideration. Good night.